Hello, and a very warm welcome. Thank you for choosing to spend your quiet time here in this peaceful sanctuary we have prepared for you. This story was crafted with the simple, kind intention of helping you find gentle contentment, allowing your mind to soften and making it just a little easier to drift into a truly restful sleep. If you find comfort in our tale, a gentle like, a quiet subscription, or a kind comment is always so deeply appreciated. Tonight, we will be visiting the Sunken Vale, a place where cool shadows hold the memory of the day's warmth and the very air seems to breathe a sigh of relief. Prepare to be enchanted by the soft glow of lumina moss and the soothing hum of whisperwind reeds. Here, you're invited to simply be, to let go of all that is heavy, and to find a profound and gentle stillness waiting just for you. Chapter 1, the first cooling touch. One must be very kind to oneself, it seems, to find a place like the Sunken Vale. The path that led here had been a warm and pleasant thing, smelling of sun-baked earth and the dry, sweet scent of meadow grasses. Yet, with every step, a traveler might feel the gentle accumulation of the day, a subtle weight upon the shoulders, a weariness that was not unkind, but was a weariness all the same. The air on the high path shimmered with a quiet heat, and the sounds were of buzzing insects and the distant, cheerful calls of birds in the open sky. It was a good world, full of life and light, and yet there was a longing for something else, a longing for a deep and cooling quiet. And then the path dipped. It was a slow and gentle declension, a soft invitation downwards, and as it curved between two unassuming hills, the air began to change. First, it was only a hint, a breath of coolness against a warm cheek, carrying with it a scent one had almost forgotten. The clean, dark fragrance of damp soil and the deep green of things that grow in perpetual shade. It was a scent that promised rest. The cheerful sounds of the open meadow faded, replaced by a profound and welcoming hush, a stillness so complete it felt like a soft blanket being drawn over the world. This was the entrance to the Sunken Vale, and it felt, in a most wonderful way, like coming home. Corin stepped from the last patch of warm sunlight into the deep, benevolent shade of the vale's trees, and a long, slow breath left their body, a breath they hadn't realized they were holding. The coolness was immediate and absolute, a gentle balm on the skin. It was not a coldness, for there was no sharpness to it, but a profound and settled cool that seemed to emanate from the very earth itself. Above, the leaves of ancient trees formed a dense canopy, a living roof of such a deep and restful green that it seemed to absorb all the day's harshness. Light filtered through in soft, diffused patches, falling upon the path like scattered coins of the palest gold, moving with a slowness that matched the languid pace of Corin's own slowing heart. Further in, nestled into the soft curve of a hillside, was a small dwelling. It was a simple structure, made of smooth, dark wood that seemed to have grown right where it stood. Its roof, a thick carpet of the same deep green moss that covered everything here. The door was a single piece of polished timber, its surface cool and silky beneath Corin's palm. There was no lock, only a simple wooden latch, an unspoken message that here all was safe, all was welcome. Pushing it open revealed a single clean room, smelling faintly of dried herbs and beeswax. A simple bed with a thick quilt was against one wall, and a small table with a single chair stood by a window that looked out into the deepening green of the vale. The weariness of the journey, the subtle weight of the sun, and the long road seemed to simply dissolve in the tranquil air of the little room. Corin placed a small travel pack on the floor, the sound muffled by the quiet. The feeling was one of profound relief, a gentle unwinding of muscles that had been held taut without notice, a quietening of thoughts that had been turning and turning all day. Here the world asked for nothing. It did not ask for attention or for thought or for action. It simply offered its own deep, abiding peace, a gift given freely and with a simple, honest kindness. Looking through the small, clean pane of the window, Corin watched as a single large leaf, loosened by a breeze too gentle to be felt, spiraled slowly downwards. It spun in the still air, a silent, graceful dance, before coming to rest on a bed of dark moss. The sound of its landing was imperceptible, absorbed into the great soft quiet of the valley floor. All around, the sounds were muted and gentle, the distant liquid murmur of what must be a brook, and the soft, breath-like sigh of the leaves overhead. There were no sharp edges here, in sight or in sound. The primary sensation, the one that settled deepest, was of being held. The vale, with its high green walls and its soft, quiet air, felt like a gentle embrace. The coolness seemed to seep into the very bones, carrying with it a sense of stillness that went far beyond the simple absence of noise. Corin felt the day's accumulated tension release its hold, a feeling like a tightly coiled ribbon slowly unfurling in a pool of still water. Here, in the heart of the cool shade, one could simply be. The light outside was beginning to soften further, the pale gold coins of sunlight fading as the sun dipped lower behind the western hill. The shadows, which had been long and distinct, now began to blur at the edges, melting into one another to form a deeper, more uniform shade of twilight blue. The air grew cooler still, and the scent of damp earth and late-blooming flowers, a delicate fragrance like sweet jasmine, became more pronounced. It was the scent of the world preparing for a night of deep and peaceful rest, and it was a most comforting invitation to do the same. Chapter 2. The Language of Leaves. The morning in the Sunken Vale did not arrive with a sudden burst of light, but rather it seeped into the world as gently as water into dry soil. A soft, pearlescent gray filtered through the window, slowly illuminating the quiet room. Corin awoke feeling not as though they had been pulled from sleep, but as if sleep itself had simply transformed into a new kind of peaceful wakefulness. There was no abruptness here, only a slow, seamless transition from the quiet of dreams to the quiet of the vale. The air was cool and carried the fresh, clean scent of night-misted leaves, a fragrance that felt restorative to breathe. Stepping outside, Corin was greeted by this deep and profound hush. The world was awash in soft, muted tones of green and gray, the trees standing as silent, patient sentinels. The path from the dwelling was made of dark, compacted earth, soft and yielding underfoot, and it led further into the heart of the Vale's gentle wilderness. Corin began to walk with no destination in mind, moving at a pace dictated by the slow rhythm of this place. The focus of the morning became the leaves themselves, the endless variety of their forms, each a small marvel of the Vale's quiet artistry. Some leaves were broad and smooth, their surfaces cool like polished wood, holding single perfect droplets of dew that shone like tiny jewels in the diffuse light. Corin touched one gently with a fingertip, feeling its cool, waxy texture, and watched the droplet tremble and roll, leaving a faint, dark trail behind it. Other leaves were shaped like delicate fans, their edges fringed with a soft, downy fuzz that felt like fine cloth to the touch. And still others grew in intricate, lacy patterns, filtering the soft morning light into a constantly shifting, dappled mosaic on the ground below. It was a language without words, a story told in texture, shape, and shade. The path curved gently, following the murmur of the unseen brook, and opened into a small sun-dappled clearing. Here, a figure was tending to a patch of low-growing plants, their movements as slow and deliberate as the world around them. This was Finn, the caretaker of the Vale, though no such title was ever spoken. Finn was an old and gentle soul, their face a kind map of many peaceful years, and they moved with a quiet grace that suggested they were as much a part of the Vale as the trees themselves. They looked up as Corin approached, and a soft, welcoming smile touched their lips, a gesture that needed no accompanying words. Finn beckoned Corin over, not with a grand sweep of the arm, but with a simple, kind inclination of the head. Beside them, a small kettle sat upon a flat, dark slab of a warm, wood-like material, a wisp of fragrant steam rising from its spout. Without a word, Finn poured a warm, pale liquid into a simple clay cup and offered it to Corin. The cup was warm to the touch, a comforting weight in the hands, and the steam that rose from it carried the delicate, sweet scent of dried chamomile petals and something else, something like honey and summer afternoons. It was a simple, profound act of kindness, a shared moment of warmth in the cool morning air. They sat together on the edge of the clearing, sipping the comforting tea in a shared, easy silence. There was no need for conversation, for the Vale itself provided all the communication necessary. The soft murmur of the brook, the gentle rustle of the leaves, the feeling of the warm cup in one's hands, all of it spoke of peace and contentment. Corin watched as Finn's gaze followed the slow drift of a seed pod carried on a current of air too subtle to feel. There was a deep and abiding appreciation in that gaze, a quiet joy taken in the smallest, simplest processes of the world. The warmth of the tea spread through Corin's body, a pleasant, gentle heat that seemed to complement the coolness of the air. It felt like a perfect balance, a quiet harmony of sensation. The sun had risen higher now, and shafts of warmer golden light pierced the canopy in a few places, illuminating dust motes that danced in their beams like tiny shining sprites. One such beam fell upon the back of Finn's hand, and Corin noticed for the first time how the skin seemed almost translucent, as if it too had learned to hold the light. This shared silence felt more meaningful than any conversation could have been. It was an understanding that passed between them, an acknowledgement of the profound beauty of this place and the quiet gift of being present within it. It was the kindness of companionship without the effort of words, a gentle resting together in the heart of the world's stillness. Corin felt a sense of gratitude so simple and so deep it was almost weightless, a feeling of being exactly where one was meant to be at exactly the right time. Chapter 3. The Slow River of Shade. As the day unfolded, Corin's attention was drawn to the grand silent movements that shaped the atmosphere of the vale. The sun, climbing higher in the sky, did not flood the valley with harsh light, but rather its presence was felt in the slow and deliberate shifting of the shadows. These shadows were not mere absences of light. They felt like tangible things, pools of deep, cool stillness that flowed and eddied across the valley floor. Corin began to follow their movement, watching as a shadow from a great ancient tree slowly stretched its fingers across a sunlit patch of moss, the vibrant green softening to a deep, cool emerald as the shade touched it. It felt like watching a river, a slow, soundless river of shade that flowed with the turning of the world. Corin found a comfortable spot on a gentle slope, leaning against the smooth bark of a tree, and simply observed this silent procession. The air within the shadows was noticeably cooler, carrying the rich scent of the earth, while the air in the sunlit patches was warm and smelled of leaves and pollen. To pass a hand from a patch of sun to a patch of shade was to feel a distinct and immediate change, a caress of coolness that was deeply soothing. The world was breathing a slow, deep inhalation of light and a long, cool exhalation of shadow. Drawn by a particular depth of green in a sheltered hollow, Corin discovered one of the vale's true wonders, the lumina moss. By day, it appeared as a thick, plush carpet of the deepest, most vibrant green imaginable. It grew over the ground and up the bases of the trees, and when Corin knelt and touched its surface, it felt wonderfully cool and soft, like stroking the ear of some gentle sleeping animal. The air around the moss was even cooler than elsewhere, as if the moss were actively drinking the day's warmth, drawing it deep into its verdant being and leaving a profound cool in its place. Corin spent a good part of the afternoon near this bank of moss, mesmerized by its simple, profound presence. A sense of deep peace emanated from it, a stillness that encouraged one's own body to relax completely. Nearby were several of the other curiosities of the vale, the resonant slabs. They were large, smooth, dark formations, looking like ancient polished wood, and they lay in the patches of sunlight. Corin went to one and placed a palm against its surface. It was wonderfully warm, holding the deep, gentle heat of the sun, a perfect counterpoint to the coolness of the moss. And then a subtle vibration began. It was a low, soothing hum that was felt more than heard, a gentle resonance that traveled from the slab up Corin's arm and into the core of their body. It was a calming frequency, a deep, steady thrum that seemed to coax the last remaining vestiges of tension from the muscles. Corin laid down for a time with her back against the warm, humming slab, feeling the gentle vibration spread through them, while their face was turned towards the cool, silent moss. It was a perfect harmony of sensation, of warmth and coolness, of sound and silence. As the afternoon began to wane, the light within the vale softened to a warm, honeyed gold. The river of shade grew wider, its currents pooling in all the low places, until only the tops of the tallest trees were still touched by the direct sun. Corin returned to the hollow of the lumina moss to witness the slow miracle of twilight. As the last of the sun's direct light vanished from the sky above the vale's rim, the moss began to change. A faint, pearlescent light started to glow from deep within it, a soft luminescence that grew steadily as the sky darkened. It was a gentle, living light, casting no sharp shadows. It pulsed with a slow, calming rhythm, like a peacefully breathing creature. The cool green of the day was replaced by a soft, silvery white glow that illuminated the hollow with an ethereal beauty. And with the light came a faint, comforting warmth, the day's stored heat being released back into the cooling air. The moss was exhaling the light it had inhaled all day. To sit there, bathed in the soft, warm glow of the lumina moss, listening to the distant melodic hum of the whisper wind reeds, was to be held in the very heart of the vale's gentle magic. The air now carried the sweet scent of night-blooming flowers, their petals unfurling in the gathering dark. The world was not falling into blackness, but was instead being held in a cradle of soft light and gentle sound. The resonant slab nearby still hummed with its stored warmth, a steady, reassuring presence in the magical twilight. Corin felt a sense of wonder so pure and so quiet that it felt like a form of prayer, a simple, grateful acknowledgement of the deep, unending kindness of the world. Chapter 4. The Stillness Within. Days flowed one into the next in the Sunken Vale, marked only by the gentle rhythm of light and shadow. And with this seamless passage of time, Corin felt a change taking place within. The busy hum of thoughts, the constant inner monologue that had been a companion for so long, began to quieten. It did not vanish in a sudden silence, but rather it softened, its sharp edges blurring, its volume turning down until it was no more than a gentle murmur, as soft and distant as the sound of the vale's own brook. The focus of the mind shifted from thinking to simply experiencing. The need to name things, to categorize and understand them, fell away, replaced by a simple, profound acceptance of their being. A leaf was not an oak leaf or a maple leaf. It was simply this leaf in this moment, with its unique pattern of veins and its particular shade of green. The world resolved itself into a series of beautiful present moments, each one flowing into the next without effort or comment. Corin's breath deepened and slowed, synchronizing with the slow, steady pulse of the valley itself, a pulse felt in the gentle hum of the reeds and the slow crawl of the shadows. One afternoon, Corin found a spot beside the brook that wound its way through the center of the vale. The water flowed with a languid grace, its surface a dark, clear mirror reflecting the green canopy above. The sound it made was a soft, continuous liquid murmur, a calming shoosh that seemed to wash over the mind, rinsing it clean of stray thoughts. Cool air rose from the water's surface, a refreshing and gentle presence that smelled of clean water and damp earth. Corin sat on the soft, mossy bank, trailing fingers in the cool, clear current, feeling the water glide over the skin like smooth silk. There was nothing to do here but be, no goals to achieve, no tasks to complete. The only invitation was to observe, to listen, to feel. Corin watched a water strider skate effortlessly across the surface of a still pool, its legs making tiny fleeting dimples in the water's skin. A small brown bird with a cheerful crest landed on a branch overhead, sang 3 clear bell-like notes, and then flew on, its song lingering in the quiet air for a moment before dissolving. These were not events in a story. They were simply the world being itself, and to witness it was a profound and peaceful gift. As the day made its slow journey towards evening, the light in the vale underwent its gentle transformation. The direct, warm sunlight vanished from the sky above, and the world was held in a soft, luminous twilight. The reflection in the brook changed from the bright green of leaves to the deep, velvety blue of the evening sky. One by one, the first stars began to appear in the water's dark mirror, their distant, ancient light seeming to find a home in the quiet heart of the valley. It felt as if one were gazing not up, but down into a second sky that was calm and deep and perfectly still. A feeling of profound acceptance settled over Corin, a quiet understanding that was felt deep in the bones. It was the feeling of being a small but welcome part of a vast and gentle whole. There was no separation between the observer and the observed. The coolness of the air was Corin's coolness. The murmur of the brook was Corin's own quiet hum. This was the stillness the vale offered, a stillness that was not empty, but was instead full of a quiet, breathing life. A life that included everything from the smallest moss to the most distant star. The lumina moss in the shaded parts of the bank began its slow, nightly glow, its soft, pearlescent light joining the starlight in the brook's reflection. The 2 lights mingled on the water's surface, the steady, ancient light of the stars and the soft, living light of the moss, creating a shifting, magical tapestry of gentle illumination. Corin lay back on the soft moss of the bank, feeling the gentle support of the earth beneath, and gazed into the deep, quiet mystery of the water and the sky. The mind was perfectly still, and the heart was perfectly full. This was peace. It was not something to be sought or achieved, but something to be settled into, like a comfortable chair or a warm bed. It had been here all along, waiting patiently beneath the surface of things, It was in the cool touch of the shade, the warm hum of the slabs, the gentle light of the moss, and the soft murmur of the water. It was the Vale's great secret and its simplest gift, and it was now a part of Corin's own quiet being. Chapter 5. Carrying the Coolness. The final morning in the Sunken Vale began like all the others, with a slow, gentle seeping of soft gray light into the world. Corin awoke feeling a sense of deep cellular rest, as if every part of their being had been allowed to exhale completely. The peace of the Vale was no longer just an external atmosphere. It had become an internal state, a quiet, steady pool of calm that resided deep within. The thought of leaving brought with it no sense of loss or sadness, only a gentle, quiet gratitude for the time spent here. The Vale was a kind teacher, and its lessons were now a part of them. Corin moved with the same slow, mindful grace that had become a habit here, preparing a simple breakfast and one last cup of the fragrant herbal tea. Sitting in the doorway of the small dwelling, they watched the morning unfold. The first direct rays of sunlight touched the very highest leaves on the western ridge, turning them a brilliant shining gold, while the valley floor remained cradled in a cool blue-tinted shadow. It was a beautiful, quiet spectacle, this slow, gentle meeting of warmth and coolness, of light and shade. The air was still and cool, carrying the familiar, comforting sense of damp earth and green things. The whisper-wind reeds hummed their soft, melodic chord, a gentle and constant farewell. Corin finished the tea, feeling its warmth spread through them, a pleasant counterpoint to the coolness of the morning. There was no hurry. The path would wait. The Vale did not push its visitors away. It simply allowed them to leave when they were ready, carrying its gifts with them. Packing the small travel bag was a simple meditative act. Each item was placed with care, the movements unhurried. The dwelling was left just as it had been found, clean and quiet and waiting. A final look around the small room was not one of goodbye, but one of acknowledgement, a silent thank you to the shelter and peace it had provided. Closing the smooth wooden door, the soft click of the latch was the only sound in the morning's deep hush. The journey out of the Vale was the reverse of the journey in. The path led gently upwards, and with each step, the profound coolness of the valley floor gave way to a slowly increasing warmth. The sounds began to change, the deep hush of the Vale softening to allow the cheerful chirping of meadowbirds and the distant hum of insects to filter in. The scent of damp earth was gradually replaced by the warm, sweet fragrance of sun-baked grasses and wildflowers. It was a slow, gentle transition back into the wider world. At the top of the path, Corin paused and turned for one last look. From this vantage point, the Sunken Vale was just a deep green cleft between the hills, its tranquil mysteries hidden from view. There was no sign of the glowing moss or the humming slabs, only the quiet tops of the ancient trees. Yet, Corin could still feel its presence, a faint coolness on the air, a deep and abiding peace that resonated within. The Vale had given a gift that could not be seen, only felt. Stepping out onto the sunlit path, the warmth on the skin felt different now. It was no longer a wearying heat, but a pleasant, life-giving warmth. The coolness of the vale remained within, a perfect balance. It was the memory of shade on a hot day, the feeling of a long, slow exhalation, the quiet certainty that such places of peace exist in the world. Corin felt not a departure, but a continuation. The journey ahead was simply another path, but it would be walked with a lighter step and a quieter mind. Taking a final, deep, effortless breath of the clean air, Corin felt the stillness of the Sunken Vale settle comfortably within their heart. It was a peace that did not need to be protected or held on too tightly, for it had become a natural part of them. It was a coolness to be carried into the warm days ahead, a quiet song to be remembered in the busy places of the world, and with a soft, gentle smile of gratitude, Corin turned and continued on their way.